Hello guys and welcome to Horologique. I am Olivier and today we are going to be reviewing the first Vostok on the channel. And for those who know their Vostoks, you will already have seen that this is the Amphibia Scuba dude. That name came of course from the scuba diver featured on the dial. This is model 420059, but there are many variations of amphibias that you can find on the Meranom website, and the link will be down below. It's not an affiliate link, but it'll take you there and you can have your pick if you don't like this one. Vostok amphibias have a big cult following, but there are just as many detractors of the watch, stating that they're really inaccurate and that they look like toys basically. And I will see here if this is the wonder that ones are talking about or if it is as bad as the others say. So let's get right into it. Let's start by very quickly looking at the history of this watch. In the late 1960s, the USSR Navy approached the Chistopol factory asking them to do a watch that could withstand 200 and 300 meters of depth, and that could be robust and manufactured to a military grade and quite cheaply. So it took them around 4 years to develop their first model, which was a 610-271, and it was a pretty basic watch, as you can see here, with wire logs and not a lot of refinement, but it did the job perfectly well. In designing this watch, the Soviets took a very different approach from their Western counterparts, and they incorporated many features that would allow this watch to be quickly manufactured to the demanded standards. And the main thing that it featured was its innovative types of gaskets. And these gaskets meant that the further you went down, the further the pressure of the water crushed the watch, the more the seals would be tight. Another of the main features was the crown. And the crown is a very special crown. When you unscrew it, it is really wobbly. And some people think that it is broken. Look at that. The stem detaches from the movement, so in that case, if you were to damage the stem by a hit, for example, that would not damage the movement. So very nice thinking there. So here is a modern version of the Amphibia, and let's look at the dimensions of this version here. We've got a diameter of 40 millimeters, a height of 15 millimeters, due in part to that big domed acrylic crystal. We've got a log-to-log of 45.7, and we've got a log width of just 18 millimeters. The bracelet juts out, which makes it go to a 20 millimeter, and then it tapers back to 18 and to 19 at the clasp. Let's take a closer look at the dial of this watch. And the dial is a dark blue, ocean blue dial, I would say, with that very characteristic scuba dude and the Vostok branding at 11. And at the lower part of the dial, you've just got the V, the B, the V in Cyrillic. And at the very bottom of the dial, you've got the Made in Russia. In previous models, in the models before the fall of the USSR, you would have, of course, the Made in the USSR. And that dial is very interesting. It is not sunburst, but it plays very well with the light, and I didn't expect it to be as handsome as it was. The indices are applied buttons with a double button at 12 orientation, and they are partly white, which is misleading because you would believe they have lume on them, but they do not. Where the lume is placed is on the little circles, on the little dots at the beginning of those indices. and those little dots do hold some lume. In fact, let's go and check the lume shot right now. Here's the lume video, and as you can see, the lume is not as bad as many say, but it does not last a long time, and you will certainly not have it last until the end of the night. But at the initial burst, it's pretty good. The issue that I have with the lume is that there's just not enough of it, and they could have put more at those indices. Maybe the batons could have been filled with lume, because right here the first thing to go are those small dots of lume at the indices. But anyway, it's not as bad, especially if you factor in the price of this watch. Let's talk about the hands. And the hour hand is this very plain arrow, nothing special about it, but it does the job. And the minute hand is this just baton, plain baton. The second hand is this red lollipop hand with a lume disc on it. About the hands, I would say that they are slightly too short. I would like to see them a bit bigger, especially that second hand. Look at how short it is. I would love it to reach the second markers on the outer dial. But as you might know, these watches are really easily moddable, and there's a lot of parts, so you can change the hands really easily. Protecting the dial is a piece of acrylic crystal, and it is very domed. And this crystal is part of the design of the watch, because the angle has been calculated for deforming just enough to provide more water resistance the further down you go. So a very nice piece of engineering there. Let's talk about the bezel insert and the bezel. And the bezel insert is made of stainless steel. About the rotation, there's no clicking here. This is a friction bezel. So there's bidirectional moving, I would say, not even clicking. If you were to use these as a diving instrument, of course, I don't see why you would do that. But if it gets knocked, you can add some time to your dive and be potentially dangerous. But let's get real, nobody uses these or a Rolex or anything for diving. Every serious diver uses a dive computer now. The bezel is a coin edge bezel, and it looks pretty good and functional, and it's very easy to grip. Let's talk about the case, and there's not much to say here. The case is pretty plain, the lugs are very short, and they are very thin, and they do the job. This is the thing about this watch, it does its job, and the whole case is polished. There is no brushing here of any kind, of course as a cost-saving measure. As for the back of this watch, as you can see, a lot of Cyrillic there. What I can gather is the amphibia there. And it must mean water resistance and all those kind of things. 200 meters, I understand. But the important thing is about the design of this back. And as you can see, it's not your typical screw in Caseback, but you've got this little ring here. When you remove the Caseback, you can see a very big gasket, and that gasket, the engineers at the time, the designers of the watch at the time, took it from the USSR space program, and it's some special material. Once it is compressed, it takes back its form, and that is a very big advantage compared to the gaskets used in other watches. And that makes it that you can screw out and screw in this watch many times without compromising its water resistance. So that is a very good thing for modders. And now take a look at that crown. That is a huge crown. Pretty big for this watch. Even though the watch is not a small thing, the crown is really big. And it is very easy to grip, of course, because there are no crown guards, so it's very easy to grip immediately, and it is very easy to turn. It's of course a screw-down crown, as you would expect, and once you screw it out, it is, as I said, very wobbly. You can hand wind the movement, but you cannot hack it. See, if I pull the crown, the second hand doesn't stop. It's a non-hacking movement. And as we're talking about the movement, this is called a Ghost 10733-98, and it beats at 19,800 beats per hour. The accuracy is stated from -20 to +60 a day, and the power reserve is only 31 hours. And it will certainly not win any accuracy awards, but I've heard that these movements can be pretty well regulated. See, look at that, it jumps from +30 to +10. So maybe I'll try that. I'll try regulating this movement and seeing how I can do with that. But look at that curve. Yeah, it goes from +20, then it goes down to +9. Yeah, I don't know how well you can regulate a movement that does not have, so look at that, +25. I don't know how well you can regulate a movement that has this much variation, but in any case, I'm gonna see what I can do. Another thing to know about the movement is that it has some kind of rudimentary quick set dates, and I will show it to you. You need to, of course, screw down the crown and to set the watch, and look at the date. It is the 6th, and we'll be going into the 7th. And if you want to quick set these dates, you'll need to go back to 9. See how it jumped there, how the 7 jumped there, and you will go forward again to 12, boom, and then you've got it, 8. You do that again, back to 9, till it jumps, and then forward again, and boom, 9. Well, it's not very practical, but at least it's there. And let's talk about that bracelet. And most people really hate this bracelet, but I'm going to try to be objective about it. So it's a 5-link bracelet, resembling an engineer bracelet. It's totally hollow, linked, as you can see in there. See, this is all pressed, and it has just pins. It's all the way shiny, which may not be to some people's liking, and it will sure attract a lot of scratches. So it's not the best quality. Hollow end links there. The clasp is signed Vostok there, but it is all pressed all over and not of the best quality. This is very flimsy, so nothing. So of course it is not a really high quality bracelet, but that is not why people hate it. They hate it because they say that it painfully removes a lot of hair on their arms. So I'm not a very hairy guy, so I do not have that problem, and I've been wearing this watch for a few days now, and I cannot say that it has been painful in any way. It has not removed any of my scarce hairs, but if you're a hairy guy, take that into account. So the Vostok Amphibia, dream or nightmare? And actually I don't think you should see it on those terms. This is a good watch, a very good watch for the money, with advancements that were revolutionary for their time. It did the same thing than the Rolexes and Omegas of the 60s and 70s did, but for much, much less money. And right now you can buy this piece of history for between $50 and $70, guys. That alone is a no-brainer. I don't see why people say that this resembles a toy. Maybe the fact that it's shiny all over. The bracelet can be indeed an issue for guys with more hair than me, but come on, you just change that and that's good enough. And the thing that attracted me about this one was, of course, that great dial with the scuba dude there. So, for the amount of money you're paying for this watch, even less than Chinese homage, I think you're getting a wonderful deal here. I'm going to be seeing if I can regulate that movement. It didn't look like I could, but we'll see. It didn't look like it would be wonderful because that curve kept on slithering, but I'm gonna see what I can do. On my next review, I'm going to be reviewing this wonderful steel dive 6105 homage. We're going back to homages. So thank you very much for having watched this video, and I'll be seeing you very soon. Goodbye.